Okay.
Boom. Well, happy today, whatever that is. I think it's the 27th. It is, it's the 27th of December. Yesterday was Boxing Day. No, did you do some boxing? I got my boxing gloves on, but anyway, I'm Thundercloud. Welcome to Wednesday Words here at the Australian Poetry Hall of Fame. It's the one in between Christmas and New Year. In 2023, pretty much our last one of the year, and it's just the two old faithfuls, yours truly, Thundercloud, washing away the garbage, leaving behind rainbows after rain, and Ashley Albanese. But that's all right, I've got a night prepared for you, so's Ashley. So let's get the show on the road, and first start by acknowledging the traditional custodians of the land on which I broadcast, the Kamilaroi, the Banby people, to acknowledge their continuing connection to the land and that sovereignty's never been ceded. All right. Tonight I've got the Penguin Book of Australian Verse, edited with an introduction by Harry Hessline. And this one here, oh gosh, it's published by Penguin Books in 1972. And I'm going to be reading some of our, again, of course, dead poets. And tonight I'm starting with a poet you may not have heard of, John Le Gay Brereton. He was born in 1871 and died in 1933. Although his career was overshadowed by that of his close friend Chris Brennan, Brereton had real gifts both as a poet and literary scholar. He was the first Shallis Professor in English language at Sydney University, while his verse makes a distinctive contribution to the poetry of his generation. And the one I'm going to be reading out tonight is Silver Gull, as in seagull. And let's open it up here. John Le Gay Brereton, The Silver Gull. With strong, slow stroke, oaring her way against the breeze, above the blustering waves that shoulder and smoke, the silver gull moves on with ease, then sidelong shoots on high, with sudden cry of rapture in the wind's imperious will, and that sweet whirling dream of blending purpose poised a moment still, she glides, a fancied shape of air down that invisible stream. I lie on the beach, sea warm beach, and out to the wandering heart of feathered life in the beating air I reach, arms that beseech, arms of my soul that in the living air, as answer to my prayer, are wings of ecstasy. And on the fierce quest silently I start above the envious crowding of the sea. Delirium of delight, caught by the wind, I strain in glorious throes of fight, finding the utmost pleasure that love can force from pain. Naked I strive and take from poverty all her treasure, living for life's own sake. O sister seabird, hearken, I call to thee, sister, my life and thine still intertwine, and not till side by side, equal and glad and free, down the invisible stream we twain may glide. Shall you or I seek rest on weathered ledge or reef or feathered nest? Wider the shelter of my grand wings outspread, encloses earth and sea, and thee unconscious wandering heart, and thee I am forgotten, but thou art still my care, who have known thy life and know thy ways mine. For over the waves thou lovest, I too have sped, where now at my heart they shine. For I am the world encircling, eddying, vast of air. It is me, in me, is the manifold urge, the shedding of leaves that push, of the seed, of all the life upon earth, the scramble and fury and fret, the ceaseless, monotonous chant of eternal surge, the pangs of change and of triumph in death and birth, the ache of unending need, lest we should have peace and forget. And mine is the torrent of hate, growling black flood with a seething foam of red, and the insolent pomp of the ape in a robe of state, and the sliding silence of Gull. And mine is the eager meeting of souls that are newly wed. Throb, throb, oh passionate heart, heed not the impotent hands that would fain defile the shrine of God, who for sake of the one still moulds the many apart. I am the spirit of joy set free, knowing no limits for further than thought can reach. And as far as love can bless, I hold exultant reign. I, embodied, supreme, the spirit of joy. Oh, sister, warm wind-wrestling bird, we too are there like flying flakes against the blue. John McGay, Brereton, the Silver Gull. The next one I'm going to be reading to you is, the next few actually are from Sean Neilson. John Sean Neilson, born 1872, passed away in 1942. Neilson is one of the sports of Australian literature, almost completely lacking in formal education, passing his life as a manual labourer. Neilson produced lyric verse of a delicacy and force to make it a landmark in the development of Australian literature. The first one I'll read of John Sean Neilson is The Orange Tree. The young girl stood beside me. I saw not what her young eyes could see. A light, she said, not of the sky, lives somewhere in the orange tree. Is it, I said, east or west? The heartbeat of a luminous boy who, with his faltering flute, confessed only the edges of his joy? Was he, I said, born to the blue in a mad escapade of spring, ere he could make a fond adieu to his love in the blossoming? Listen, the young girl said, their calls. No voice, no music beats on me, but it is almost sound, it falls this evening on the orange tree. Does he, I said, so fear the spring ere the white sap too far can climb? See in the full gold evening all happenings of the olden time? Is he so goaded by the green? Does the compulsion of the dew make him unknowable but keen, asking with beauty to the blue? Listen, the young girl said, for all your hapless talk you failed to see, there is a light, a step, a call this evening on the orange tree. Is it, I said, a waste of love, imperishably old in pain, moving as an affrighted dove under the sunlight or the rain? Is it a fluttering heart that gave too willingly and was reviled? Is it the stammering of at a grave the last word of a little child? Silence, the young girl said. Oh, why will you talk to weary me? Plague me no longer now, for I am listening like the orange tree. Lovely. The next one, Song Be Delicate by John Shaw Neilson. Let your song be delicate, the skies declare, no war, the eyes of lovers wake everywhere. Let your voice be delicate, how faint a thing is love, little love crying under the spring. Let your song be delicate, the flowers can hear, too well they know the tremble of the hollow year. Let your voice be delicate, the bees are home, all their day's love is sunken, safe in the comb. Let your song be delicate, sing no loud hymn. Death is abroad, oh, the black season, the deep, the dim. And the next one, by J. Shaw Neilson, I'll read, is called May. Shyly, the silver-hatted mushrooms make soft entrance through, and undelivered lovers half awake hear noises in the dew. Yellow in the earth and in the skies the world would seem. Faint as a widow mourning with soft eyes and falling into dream. Up the long hill I see the slow plough leave furrows of brown. Dim is the day and beautiful I grieve to see the sun go down. But there are suns for many for mine eyes, day after day. Delightsome in grave greenery they rise, red oranges in May. That's J. Shaw Neilson, some of his poetry. The last one that I'm about to finish with after this sneeze comes out. That's the chlorine from the swimming pool. Is by Brian Vrepont. I'll just read you a little about Brian. You've probably never heard of him because I hadn't either. Brian Vrepont, his real name was Benjamin Arthur Trubridge, born 1882 and died in 1955. Born in Melbourne, Vrepont included in his varied career occupations as varied as violin teacher and masseur. His only book, Beyond the Claw, published when he was 61, contains some quite idiosyncratic writing for an Australian of his generation. There's only one of his poems in this book, and it's The Net-Menders. The Net-Menders by Brian Vrepont. I came upon them by a strip of sea, in a drizzle of rain, mending their fishing net. 4 swift brown hands, and lean with industry, shuttling the thin twine skilfully in and out, repairing the fret. Of rock-jag, shark-tooth, and thresh, he, tense as a mackerel, strong and agile, sea-eyed and grim as rock, turned, and his smile was as the wonder of sunshine on sea rock, his fingers harping the net mesh. She on the seaside, facing the land, took stock of me, leisurely nearing through half-shut eyes. Defence, I thought, but her mouth relaxed, went sweet and soft as a sea flower, her hands enterprise, on the seaside of the breaks in the net, rippling the strings of the 2-sided harp of the sea. And I thought, here is where sea melodies meet, mending the breakage of earth and sea fret, and the strange great grace of simplicity came on me. If they had angers in them, these 2 by the sea, not in the 2 days dwelt with them, watching the shuttle flying, the flat corks tied, and the strong boat pitch-corked for battle with the sea, was flaw apparent in the gem, their poverty too real for pride to hide, gave them no envy, not even in the lamplight, and shadows of our talk, not when the net was trailed and netted naught, save weed, nor when I spoke that unforgettable night, we fought the tide and drifted home, star-caught. And I spoke of the hawk, now in the dark vanished, that all day long, circled and soared and plunged on innocence. Cruel life, I cried. But my cry crossed over the woman's song, over the zither of the boat cutting the brine and died. And the man said, it is life. And the boat gritted the waiting sand with sound of a cleansing knife, and we slept at life's command. That's that. That was very evocative. I just really felt like I was sort of there in that one. Yeah, I don't know. All right, a little of my own now. I decided to take you back to my very, very early days when I started writing poetry, which was 2017. This one was one written on the 22nd of February 2017. It was probably about, well, it was about 5 weeks after I really started writing. It's ode to the leaf that fell on my head from a tree. Food for thought. Toilet rolls are 1,000 sheets. Raw foods, good to eat. Scrunch a folder, 1 sheet or 2. Do you eat while you poo? Reducing dead food reduces the need to wipe and saves a tree. Reducing food, reducing need, reducing scrunching, reducing greed. Composting toilets are the way to go. Reducing water, protecting the planet, our home. This is a very early poem of mine. And I've got another one here for you. This one was written for a particular politician at the time, but I kind of think it could be for anyone, any of our politicians. The photograph that I've got with it is actually like a quarter of the Union Jack on a t-shirt of the Sex Pistols that says punk sex. No sex for ministers, no relationships for colleague, no smoking, no thinking, no sense if you please. You must wear a blue suit, you must swear on a book. You must turn a blind eye, no, you must not look. Take all that you can, we'll look after you in the Bugger Bum Boys Club, red, white and blue. No thinking for yourself. You must toe the line, turn a blind eye to corruption. No questions and you'll be fine. No speaking to news, no interviews unless we say, quiet about the children in that back room, okay? Take all that you can. We'll look after you in the Bugger Bum Boys Club, red, white and blue. Something I wrote. On the 20th of February 2018. So that was 1 year after the one before that I read to you. What else have I got for you here that I wanted to read to you? One of the very early ones that I wrote, the very, very early ones, on the 22nd of January 2017. It's called a goat tree. I planted a goat tree. This was inspired actually by a photograph that I saw of a tree, and it had all goats standing in it. I planted a goat tree seed. A goat tree grew right there. I planted a hate tree seed, and people grew in fear. I planted an elephant tree, and the laughter loudly grew as I walked under and I looked up. The elephant did a poo. I planted seeds of love. Words of love came from my mouth. A forest grew of lovely trees. A rainbow grew as well. I planted seeds of doubt, and fear grew in my mind. I had to stop them, pull them out and compost them with lime. I planted sunflower seeds in a bitumen car park, herbs beside the road and bananas in a park. Banana trees don't grow from seeds. You only need a sucker. So take some seeds and grow some trees on the footpath by the gutter. Chili seed is not a weed, nor is a goat tree. Cannabis seed can clothe and feed, give medicine for free, grow food for free, or so go sow the seeds, grow food for free. Organic is so pure, but processed foods, costly and crude, are worse than goat manure. That was, a long way ago. Many years ago now. If I got you something else. All right, got one more from, oh yes, this one. This is what I want to do. I wish I could do a listen. All right. This is 6 days ago. A captainless ship with no wind will just drift aimlessly, because a destination is a gift. But a ship with a captain will charter a course the same way as a jockey takes the reins of a horse. All right, that's one of my more recent ones. Now, I do have a very special one for you coming up, and it's called I Listen, and I'm going to play it through the up there. But Ashley, are you just about ready?
Yes.
Yes. All right, well, here we go. Ashley Albanese, he's going to come up. He's got a suitcase, he's got a big piece of paper with something extremely interesting on it. So I know he's written a sight poem. So.
Well. Hallelujah.
Merry Christmas.
Here I am, once again, in hope for inimitabilities. I have my trusty 3 rulers, hypothesis, implication, perimeter. No, I've got 2. The point being that we love variation within a fugue, and I would not be here as a trickster about to go with this number 1. 1 becomes 2. Hypothesis, implication, and perimeter. So why would I do that? Just to add some texture to my Wednesday nights of going hypothesis, implication, and perimeter. Yes, as they say, 1 becomes 2. But in the consciousness of that, we have 3. Thus I think as the dawn comes up. Well, I'm doing a Christmas poem. Here is my Christmas poem. I had to ask James which way I did this to open it. Clockwise. I'm challenged being a bit messed up in that way of coordination. So, my poem is Christmas, oh men, amen. Where's the P for omen, poem? There somewhere. And then the poem says,
Christmas, poem.
Can they hear me? Gaza, Saga Gaza, underneath the rubble, we are... Got to finish it, haven't I? Can anyone guess? I'm not ribbing you. We are CRIBBEED. Underneath the rubble, we are cribbed. We are cribbed. And before I came up with my Christmas thought, I looked in our happy world of computer at all the different meanings for crib. And evidently, unbeknownst to me, Aussies have often used the word crib for a quick bite between chores at work. Crib has many resonances across the English language. To Yankees, it's a home, and to English people, it's 2 or 3 meanings within itself. So there we are. Christmas, Gaza, Saga, Gaza. Underneath the rubble, we are cribbed, or cribbed. Now, let's hope things still happen in the crib. When I was a little boy, my dad, inexorable fellow that he was, to have any breath after the things he went through at 19 and 20, used to say to me, you see this briefcase? You see this port? Make sure you've got a good education, can sing some songs to give to other people, broadly craft some poems, because one day you, accompanying many of my refugee friends, may have to leave home with just a port. And you can't carry too much in the port. But if you've worked with this, you can carry lots of stuff in this. So, there's my port. do support the poetry, do support James. He's on a mighty mission, and he really has the port for support. Now, I thought of some of Dad's mates then, busy businessmen and wealthy men that they were in Australasia in the 50s and 60s. But in the 40s, many had to carry a port across a border, and was what they had in their brain through education and reading and writing and critique that carried them forward. Through the issitudes vicissitudes. Here's a poem. In the midst of sex, striving to create a warrior greater than himself. At the moment of orgasm, losing consciousness, he is afraid that instead of progeniting the warrior in the depths of the womb, he'll be bung on the head himself in that moment of blasting, instantaneity. Bang! That's a tragic poem, isn't it? That's my evolutionary thoughts, my evolutionary aspect. Now, just a couple of ditties. R.D. Fitzgerald, who it always intrigues me, died at Glen Innes, nearby. And dear old Let Your Song Be Delicate fellow, he spent his last days before he went down to Melbourne, in his last days, with friends at Casino, John Shaw Neilson. So, R.D. Fitzgerald quotes a piece of Mary Gilmore's, Henry's, well, there's Henry over there, Henry's girlfriend at one time, and I'll read it. It's part of one of her poems. It has a space and a resonance that one finds in Aboriginal things and in Russian things, this sense of vast space. So he says of Mary Gilmore, Mary Gilmore perhaps meant hymn and ballad quite literally, but in the widened sense that applies to her own work, the term hymn may be used for any verse, with a singing quality in its syllables and a sense of wonder which is worship in what it conveys. So, something of what I mean, talking about her work in terms of hymn and ballad, in the broader sense is here in the words from this extract, Swans at Night, which also reminds me of the great early 19th century Australian writer. They had a great short film of his here, Charles Harper, during the festival. So, Mary Gilmore wrote, maybe she was channeling Harper. Within the night, above the dark, I heard a host upon the air. Upon the void they made no mark, for all that they went sailing there. And from that host there came a cry, a note of calling strange and high. I heard it blown against the sky till naught there seemed but it and I. Long and lonely wraith of sound, it floated out in distance wide, as though it knew another bound, a space wherein it never died. I heard the swans. I heard the swans that sped by night, that ever, where the starlight wanes, fly on unseen within the height. I never knew how wide the dark, I never knew the depth of space, I never knew how frail a bark, how small is man within his place, not till I heard the swans go by, not till I marked their haunting cry, not till within the vague on high, I watched them pass against the sky. Interesting to contemplate that she would sit in rooms and meditate upon and recite that poem she once wrote, where now a giant Coca-Cola sign blazes at the 5 ways leading in to the beloved, or once beloved, King's Cross. As you go up William Street, you have this giant icon of What I Wonder, Coca-Cola-ing above you. Mary Gilmore actually lived there in the flats that were there many moons ago. Now, I remember my grandfather's second wife always spoke with great reverence of Mary because she'd been Mary's housekeeper for 15 or so years in that flat where the great Coca-Cola sign now stamps its imperial, iconish burgundy red blaze. So, I will read just a couple of poems that took my fancy. A small piece by Aldous Huxley, the very dynamic mind of Aldous Huxley. I suppose it relates to my thoughts about orgasm in which we lose consciousness, trying to create the great mythic hero to go and bang people's heads, but in the process we make it our own head bung. A million spermatozoa, all of them alive, out of their cataclysm, but one poor Noah dare hope to survive. And among that billion, -1, might have chanced to be Shakespeare, another Newton, a new John Donne, but the one was me. Shame to have ousted your betters thus, taking ark while the others remained outside. Better for all of us, fraud homunculus, if you'd quietly died. It's the hard thing to translate in language, taking ark while the others remained outside. And of course, one instantly thinks of the word spark. But if one were to translate that into another language, that echo and resonance of diction would be lost, I think. It's interesting, I was reading the other day that translations of Charles Dickens, I think I may have mentioned on the camera here, translations of Charles Dickens into Chinese are now translated back into English. And you get this strange, different penumbra and echo within Dickens' articulations and consciousness. The next I will read is Mayday Song for North Oxford. In my life I've met 3 people who met John Betjeman, who was born in 1906, so in his 20th year he was able to have escaped the First World War in terms of losing his blood on Flanders Field, and he was getting into his 30s as Hitler straddled the horizon. Now, I met 3 people who met him, and he left an indelitability upon them. I always remember that. Mayday Song for North Oxford. Well, Broughton Road is bonny, and pinkly bursts the spray of prunus and forsythia across the public way, for a full springtide of blossom seethed and departed hence, leaving landlocked pools of jonquils by sunny garden fence, and a constant sound of flushing runneth from windows where the toothbrush too is airing in this new North Oxford air. From summer fields to Linhams, the thirsty tarmac dries, and a Sherwell mist dissolveth on elm discovering skies. Oh, well-bound wells and bridges, oh, earnest ethical search for the wide high table logos of St. C.S. Lewis's church. This diamond-eyed spring morning, my soul soars up the slope of a right good rough-cast buttress on the house wall of my hope, and open-necked and freckled, where once there grazed the cows, emancipated children swing on apple boughs, and pastel-shaded bookrooms bring new ideas to birth, as the whitening hawthorn only hears the heartbeat of the earth. Relate that to James's poem about the falling leaf. It reminds me of Mark's comments about
What's the title of that?
Mayday Song for North Oxford by John Benjamin. Reminds me of Karl Marx's comment about the English, that the only revolution we can expect from him is a revolution in gardening. Of course, he didn't quite mean that, but I shall now sing a song. I wrote this in longhand, and I'm so taken with it. The couple of hours I once had talking to Bruce Dorr were very precious to me, and we talked about Australian sins and Australian things and Australian her story and history. So this is his very funny testimonials, a ballad for the subliminal age. A man lay in a car smash down in George Street. As I passed by, his voice rose high. He was lighting a cigarette with a tow truck blowtorch. And in between deep puffs, I heard him cry. It's the special filter tip that makes the difference. It's the menthol blend that soothes the sorest throat. It's the fine gold pack for which you pay no extra. It's the smoke top men prefer on plane or boat. As I walked down a back street that same evening, I saw a house on fire. A crowd looked on. A fireman staggered from the blazing wreckage. An old lady in his arms then sang this song. It's the special filter tip that makes the difference. The menthol blend that soothes the sorest throat. Fine gold pack for which you pay no extra. It's the smoke top men prefer on plane or boat. The Amoco oil refineries were exploding. As I approached, a man flew through the air, and a guard in duty at the main gate murmured, "There goes one full-time smoker who will swear," as I would swear. 'Tis the special filter tip that makes the difference. The menthol blend that soothes the sorest throat. The fine gold pack for which you pay no extra. The smoke-top men prefer on plane or boat. So I suppose we're all the one full-time smoker who will swear one way or another. I will finish with what have I been reading? Now I've been looking at, I'm sure YouTube won't go off their rocker if I recommend the extraordinary docos they've put up by Paul Cooper. I couldn't recommend anything more than 3 hours of your time put into his profound documentary on the Sumerians. Gosh, I watched that and I was a different person by the time it ended. And I wonder what may yet lie in those hundreds of libraries that exist in Babylonian Sumerian cuneiform. The pages about the size of this in clay that we have not yet translated. And of course, as people did 30 years ago, I wonder what we may have destroyed when we went, excuse me for rippling with electronic something or other. I'll have to come back to that. Anyone ringing me always finds I'm never there because I'm in the middle of going 120 kilometres and worrying about the police. Or exhorting forth now. It is interesting that at the time of the First Iraq War, people were rightfully very worried that wonderful collections of irreplaceable cuneiform tablets were being probably bombed to dust. There seems to be a lot of dust in ancient Sumer and modern Sumer. So I will finish once again by saying, just flick onto those Paul Cooper documentaries. They're extraordinary. There's about 15 of them looking at the civilisations that have blip-blopped off, and you will see and learn things that are ineffable. The January and February and March that face us are unique in the span of human history. That's not easily said for me, but we face 12 extraordinary weeks, I think. We'll finish tonight with a short reading. Victor Hugo, after the exile 1870-1878, from Things Seen. And this is marked 3rd of September 1870, the return to France. And I would recommend, if anyone has volume 44 of the collected Marx and Engels, which I think is the most interesting of all the 68 or 65 volumes. If you have touch with volume 44, go and read it. Now, this is what Hugo said, and it still chimes through the things of flow. Return to France, 3rd of September 1870. Yesterday, after the decisive battle had been lost, Louis Bonaparte, Napoleon III that is, surrendered his sword to the King of Prussia. He'd been taken prisoner at Sedan. Just a month ago, on 2nd of August, he was playing the game of war at Saarbrück. To save France now would be to save Europe. L'Océdar Buichot Amoureux came to see me. Newsboys are going past with enormous posters bearing the words, Napoleon III captured. 5 o'clock. Charles and our friends haven't come back yet. 9 o'clock. Meeting of the exiles, 15 Grand Place. I attended with Charles, who came back at 5:30. Aid for Marriott, etc., etc. 17 Rue de Chaumière, 2nd floor, number 11, opening onto Reverse Saint-Croix. Question, and this is the question confronting all of us. Tricolor or red flag? Do read volume 44 of the Marx and Engels if you've got it in a library or university unit near you. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Ashley, very much. Okay, here we go. Some of my poetry for the week. Well, if I go back to 6 days ago, I think Thursday morning, I was waiting for Sky to get back to Gyra, and this is what came out. You really miss your water when the well begins to dry, misty clouds swirling, threaten rainfall from the sky. The water carrier waiting for the sky's precipitation with empty buckets ready in hopeful anticipation. The rain begins to fall and the ground begins to swell, aquifers recharging, now there's water in the well. Rivulets are running and recharge the river's course. The water carrier fills his buckets from the nature's source. The source of life is twofold. One falls from above. The water carrier knows the second source of life is love. One comes from the sky, the other from the heart. Love goes stronger when two lovers are far, far apart. So yeah, that was the last week. Here's another one. This was called Tradition, and I'm questioning these traditions, particularly these religious traditions that we follow, when particularly know many of the people that follow these religious traditions aren't actually practicing Christians and never set foot in a church, or rarely set foot in a church. Tradition is a state of repeating conditions and rules based on hearsay. Resistant to change, lacking critical reflection, limiting creativity in many ways. Rigid roles restrict progress, perpetuating inefficient and outdated practice. A malpractice of reactants, fundamentalists and Baptists distract us with Christmas cactus, which are dressed traditionally with an angel on top, money in a card, socks, undies, and a new set of barbecue tongs for pop. Every Sunday, this pew reserved for Mr. and Mrs. Jesus H. Crossed. If you don't believe in the flying spaghetti monster, your soul is lost. If your tribe was given land by the centre of the universe, then Moses was smoking DMT from acacia, making Deuteronomy perverse. Tradition states who we love and who we are supposed to hate. Are Abdul and Muhammad. However, Peter, Paul and Mary are our mates. Tradition. And I've got one, two more for you. One more, two more. This one was written on Christmas Eve. It's a bit of a thundercloud one. It was the day before Christmas, so I'm wearing my thunder shirt on. This is a bit of a story between this. It's got the dragon and the tiger on it, and when the dragon and the tiger meet, there's lots of fighting, and then there's rain and lightning. All right, here we go. It was the day before Christmas, and just to be a pain, Thundercloud decided that he wanted to make it rain. The farmers were happy, of course, and the fish thought it was great. Thundercloud began the day early at around about 6:08. The flash, boom and bang, the rain tumbled down. Plans for Christmas Day were quickly changed around. As the lightning flashed, the thunder grumbled, and swimming pools of rain fell and flowed and tumbled. The power went out and no one could do cooking as the fridge temperature rose. The prawns were not so good looking. Coastal holidays were washed out and tourists were miffed. But the farmers, land and nature celebrated Thundercloud's Christmas gift. That's that. Here's another one. It's interesting to me how Adolf Hitler is painted as a fascist, but a Nazi is a socialist, a National Socialist. Which, why was he painted as a fascist when he was a socialist?
He was not a socialist.
National
No one
Socialist.
has ever studied it, ever has any views.
Individualist versus collectivist. Freedom
They
of
were
speech.
not socialists.
Well, then why'd they name themselves socialists?
Why does
Nazi Party.
the Bible Belt call themselves
Individual. Anyway,
Christian
let's get on to
Zionists?
this.
Don't
poem.
talk rubbish, James.
Well, people
That's
think
just rubbish. We
socialist.
should have a debate one night on this.
Well, yeah, but not here. Individualist versus collectivist. Freedom of speech versus impeach. Questionarity versus misinformation. Self-regulation versus controlling situations. Liberty versus corpse in jail. Entrepreneur versus paper trail. Humanism versus statism, communism, socialism, all in the end just various forms of fascism disguised as the illusion of representative democracy.
You should stay off politics, James, because you don't know anything about it.
Thank you for your judgment, Ashley.
I know what I'm talking about. I've known Nazis, you never have.
Thank you,
I've known
Ashley.
the real devil.
Have a lovely evening. Thank you everybody for joining us here on Wednesday Words. Have a lovely evening. See you next week.